So last week, Overwatch released the new trailer for their character Vendetta. And ever since then, my social media feed has been filled up with people going back and forth and arguing over whether Overwatch is down bad and stealing ideas from Marvel rivals and vice versa. But I feel like there's some things that people aren't really talking about and they're not really being truthful about. So let's talk about it. YouTube, what's going on, man? It's Father Dark. Hope everybody had a great weekend. If not, I'm sorry to hear that. But we do have Turkey Day coming up pretty soon, Thanksgiving. Hope everybody's got some good plans for that. Spending time with their family. If you're not around your family, I do apologize, and I hope that you have a great Thanksgiving regardless. Nonetheless, let's go ahead and get into the video. So like I was saying in the intro, Overwatch released a trailer for the new character Vendetta. Now, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. I haven't actually heard anybody pronounce the name, but I'm assuming just from the spelling, that's how you pronounce it. If I am wrong, please correct me. I don't really keep up with Overwatch as much. When I did play Overwatch, it was a handful of times, and it was only because close friends and family members, they pretty much no-life that game pretty religiously, and it was the only thing that we could kind of agree on to play together. But Overwatch was never really my style of game. It was very slow for me compared to what I was playing at the time, which was games like Call of Duty and stuff like that. They were very like movement based. So going over from that to Overwatch was just like, it was almost kind of like a grueling experience for me. And plus I just wasn't really into the idea of hero shooters and things like that. I think the only reason that I was able to get into Marvel Rivals was simply because of the fact that it was the Marvel IP. So I was willing to give it a chance to be able to play certain characters that I really enjoyed, like Spider-Man, Iron Man, a lot of other characters and stuff. And I started to have a love for the game, after the fact and things like that. But like I was saying, though, once this trailer was released, the first thing that I started seeing people saying was, oh, well, this is basically magic. Now, I didn't think about that to begin with, just because, like I said, I don't really care about Overwatch or like what's going on. I know a lot of times whenever I bring up Overwatch in a video, it's kind of like a comparison to something, because that's kind of how we do here a lot of times when we're talking about stuff. I like to make comparisons so we can kind of see stuff from a different perspective or point of view. A lot of people in the comments and they're like, oh, try to talk about Marvel Rivals without bringing up Overwatch. And really that's impossible a lot of times when you're really doing deep dives into stuff that's going on with a lot of games, because that is what games do nowadays. They borrow and they take, and it's not even just nowadays, but I mean, that's kind of always how it's been. When a game comes out and they do something and it works, people a lot of times will borrow that or implement certain aspects of that into their own game and kind of build upon it. A lot of times, hopefully, sometimes games just try to do a copy and paste, and then change the aesthetic around a little bit. But really what you should be doing is, taking things that work from one game and adding those into your own game. A lot of good examples are like, if you take like battle royales, for example. When battle royales first came out, originally you had like PUBG and stuff. And I know that battle royales were originally started from like, what was it, an Arma 3 mod or something like that. Point that I'm making is that when they first came out, they were very clear cut and dry. You had 100 people and they'd be dropped off in a map. And basically once you got deleted, you were done. There was no way to like come back. They're very straightforward and very simple, right? And then as time went on, you had other games come out like Fortnite. They kind of changed different aspects and things like that. Then you had, War Apex and Warzone and stuff like that come out. And when they were all fighting for like the battle royale supremacy, they would all kind of like take different ideas from each other. Like when Fortnite first came out, it was the same thing as like PUBG or the Arma 3 mod, where once you got deleted, you were just done. There was nothing you could do. You couldn't come back. Then you had Apex come out, and Apex allowed you to bring people back. If you could get to their box, their death box or whatever in a certain period of time, you could bring them back. You could res them. Then Warzone came out, and Warzone was like, listen, there's not even like a time or anything. Not only will we allow you to buy people back if you can just find the cash and go to a buy station, but you'll actually be able to go to the gulag and fight to have your, to be able to come back. And then there was a lot of other stuff that started getting implemented. Apex had zip lines to make it easier to get from point A to point B. They had like redeployment balloons and things like that. And you started seeing Warzone start implementing these ideas into their game, right? So to me, that just makes the games better. It's not a situation where it's like, oh, well, this game has to copy what this game is doing. No, a lot of times you just need to, take little small things from a game that are actually these very big, like quality of life things, because that's a big part of battle royales, is being able to get, like, if you're on one side of the map and the circle just happens to go to the other side, you need some type of way to be able to help you get to that side of the map faster, right? And it's the same thing too with like being able to buy people back and things like that. That used to be one of the worst things about battle royales was if your teammate made a bad decision or just got really unlucky and the rest of you survived, they would have to spend the rest of the match spectating you, and that's just boring. So it made it a lot better for the community overall if people were able to be brought back. And I know you're saying, well, what does this have to do with Overwatch and Marvel Rivals? Well, the thing is that when I first loaded up Marvel Rivals for the first time, one of the first things that I said was, "Oh wow, this looks just like Overwatch." Like as far as like the user interface and stuff like that, the UI, it literally looked exactly like a clone. Now I haven't played Overwatch in years, but from the last time that I had played it to when I first opened up Marvel Rivals, it seemed like it was an actual clone of it. And even when I played a lot of the characters in the beginning, there were a lot of characters that I looked at and I said, "Oh well, they just took this character from Overwatch, and they basically, fit this person's kit from the Marvel universe around what, kind of like how this would play in Overwatch." Now, there's a lot of characters that I feel like are different. Like, I don't know if there's like a Spider-Man equivalent or a Black Panther equivalent in Overwatch, but I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of other characters in Marvel Rivals that are just like characters in Overwatch, in my opinion. Kind of like Psylocke, and I don't know if his name is Genji. I forget who it is. Whoever the guy is that throws the ninja stars and stuff, right? Pretty much Psylocke, right? And Magneto, I feel like he's kind of like that. The one character, the guy that he's like bald and has like the suit of armor thing on, and just kind of moves around slowly, and he shoots like he's like a poke type tank or whatever, et cetera, et cetera. I could go on all day long about different characters that are comparisons to each other. And the thing is that to me, there's no issue with that. When you take a game and you say, okay, this is Overwatch. Overwatch was a good game. It kind of started dying off. So we're going to take the foundation here of what made the game good, and then we're going to add in a bunch of other stuff. And the thing is that Overwatch and Marvel Rivals kind of go back and forth. And to me, that's what helps games. Like competition breeds creativity, right? So Overwatch had the issue where there wasn't really anyone for them to compete with for a period of time. And they just kind of got stagnant and stale because that's what happened. Same thing happened with Call of Duty. Call of Duty didn't really have any real AAA competitors, and it just got to a point to where things just got stale. And then recently you've had Battlefield come out, and Battlefield basically took all of the complaints that Call of Duty was getting in Warzone and stuff like that, and they just simplified a lot of things, but then expounded upon a lot of things as well. And now, there's a lot of competition there. So Call of Duty is having to do a lot of things that they weren't willing to do before to keep up with the numbers that Battlefield is getting. And that's the thing, is that what's funny about it is that as much as people like to sit back and say that Marvel Rivals that Overwatch is starting to copy things from Marvel Rivals, which they are, I believe character bans and stuff like that, bringing in 6v6, making like the Stadia mode or whatever. And these are all things that I haven't played myself, but these are just things that I've heard from others saying that, like, oh, well, these are things that they've added in now. And they only started doing these things once Marvel Rivals came onto the scene, right? As much as they've done that, there's other things too that you can say that Rivals has taken from Overwatch. And it's funny because you even had people that were sitting back and they were talking about the character. I don't know his name, what it is, but he was the guy that I believe got released before Vendetta. He's some Asian guy that has like a bow staff or something like that. I think he's a support character. Let me know in the comments what his name is. Nonetheless, you had a lot of people that were going, oh, well, when Gambit came out, look, they're trying to copy Overwatch. Now, the thing is that with characters and stuff like that, a lot of this stuff, especially with live service games, you have to plan them out like a year in advance, like the content that you're going to be releasing, because it's a live service game. So your game can't really stay alive if you don't have constant updates. And that's been one of the things with Overwatch that I feel like has really taken a lot of people away from that game, is the fact that you can count on like one hand how many characters get released in like a two-year time period. Whereas if you play Rivals, you're going to be very spoiled because we get updates every month. And even with me, it's still like, to me, it feels kind of slow because I'm used to games like Call of Duty and Fortnite and stuff like that, where you get updates at the same frequency, but the amount of content that you get is so much more because it's not a hero shooter. And with hero shooters, it's not like you can say, well, we're going to release a bunch of different loadouts and all these different things and stuff. All they can do is release one character at a time. And in my opinion, I honestly feel like they're giving us characters too fast, because it just seems like at the rate that they're going, they'll almost have too many characters. At some point, they'd have to kind of slow down, because you think about it, if you're getting 12 characters a year, because now that's the frequency they're releasing them at, is a new character every month. It's going to get to a point to where the roster will just be too big, in my opinion, and it will be kind of overwhelming for people that are trying to get into the game. When you load in and there's like 100 characters, it's kind of like, oh man, this is a lot here, right? Not to mention like balancing and stuff like that. But the point that I'm making is that with live service games have had to change and evolve. There was a time where playing a hero shooter like Overwatch and getting like 2 characters or 3 characters a year or something, that seemed like a lot because that's what people were used to. But then Rivals comes in and they're like, hey, we're going to up the ante here. We're going to release a new character every month. Now Overwatch has to compete with that. But at the same time, like I said before, in my opinion, it's good that these 2 games have each other to compete with, because there's never a situation where if there's just one thing, everything's going to be better for you all. That's not what you want. You want there to always be multiple different things to choose from, because it's always going to make these companies have to work harder. You think about consoles, for an example. PCs are different because PCs, there's so many variations. People can build them themselves, et cetera, et cetera. But with consoles, let's just say that Xbox stops making consoles, right? And it's just PlayStation. PlayStation is not going to have to do much because they're like, listen, we're the only game in town outside of, Nintendo and stuff like that. But Nintendo, it's kind of its own thing. That's more of like family friendly games and children and stuff like that. Whereas like the overall consoles for more like adults, and not saying adults can't play Switch, but you get what I'm saying here, right? Like the real competitive, Nintendo's in a whole league of its own. You know what I mean? As far as stuff like that. So I don't really count that. That's a whole separate thing. But really when it comes down to like consoles and the console wars and all that kind of stuff, the reason that you're able to get so many games and why they try so hard to make these consoles better each time and to constantly innovate and do all these different things is because they have to compete with each other. No differently than Android and iPhones, right? Like if there was only iPhone wouldn't really have to do much to get your money. We need phones. So like clearly you're just going to go get an iPhone. So they won't really have to do much. But if they're constantly having to keep up with what Android is doing as far as like whether it's AI or making waterproof phones or, I don't know, like how good the cameras are, whatever the case is, right? They're going to have to keep making it better and better each time to make you say, hey, listen, I'd rather have this thing over this thing. And it's kind of the same thing with games. And like I said, this was an issue that Overwatch had because for a long time, there was no one else to compete with them in the hero shooter, niche or whatever. So when Rivals came out, all of a sudden, even the developers themselves said it. And this is, you don't have to take my word for it. You can just look it up. They came out numerous times and they said, listen, we were just kind of chilling, vibing. We really didn't have a reason to do a lot of different things or try a lot of new things. But as soon as Rivals came out and it took away a big portion of our base, then we had to start switching things up and trying new things. And there's a lot of people that had got frustrated with Overwatch that ended up going back. I've had a lot of people in my comments say, hey, man, if you're having a few rough matches in Marvel Rivals, why don't you switch over to Overwatch? They got this new stadium mode. They have 6v6. It's actually really fun now. They've changed a lot of things, reworked a lot of things, et cetera, et cetera. And like I said, it's just not my style of game. But for people that do like the game, that's only made their lives better. But at the end of the day, though, the whole going back and forth and saying like, oh, well, one game is better than the other one or blah, blah, blah. If you're an actual gamer, you should always want games to thrive, even if it's a game that you don't like per se, right? You should still want it to thrive. It shouldn't be a thing where it's like, oh, this is a dead game, or oh, your game's going to die, or oh, my game's better. I get that, the kind of like, the rivalry that a lot of people have. And sometimes it is just banter and it's back and forth. But for a lot of people, it's like they really want a lot of games to not exist and only the game that they like to exist. I guess in the hopes that if that game isn't around, then everyone will play the game that they like and that'll be the more popular thing. I get that, but it's also very selfish. Like I said, if there is only one game and like Marvel Rivals was to die off for some reason and you just had Overwatch, do you really think they would keep making all the innovations and doing all the different things that they're doing now? No, they go right back to what it is. And that's just like in life. We always need something to keep us going and pushing to the next level. Right? Like if you were to play, like load into Rivals and you were just every season number one, you really didn't have to try that hard. Nobody was ever getting better at the game. You would get bored with it and you probably want to move on to something else. So there constantly needs to be other people that are better than you that play the game more and understand it more to keep you wanting to keep playing and learning and doing new things. The same thing with them updating the game and changing a lot of stuff. There's a lot of people that get upset because they'll say, oh, well, why do they nerf this or why do they buff this or whatever the case is. That's what keeps live service games thriving. if you have characters, like let's say that there's only 2 supports that you can play, and then they don't ever change that because those are the best supports in the game, and you're just going to lose if you don't play those supports. That's not fun for people. It's way more fun when, you know, maybe last season, Cloak and Dagger and Rocket were the best characters in the game, and now they nerf those. I'm not saying they have, but let's say they nerf those characters, and also they make Loki and Mantis the best characters in the game, right? Well, now you have new characters to play and learn. Not saying they're new like they're new to the game, but new in the sense that it's like, oh, they have these new team ups, these new abilities. Now they're overpowered, they're broken. It keeps content creators having content to push out, and when content creators can push out the content, more people are going to be interested in playing the game. It's all just a big cycle where everybody gets to eat, everybody gets to have a good time. But, you know, to wrap the video up, though, personally, though, I don't really see an issue with them creating characters that are similar and stuff like that. In my opinion, there's only so many different styles of characters you can make, right? And at the end of the day, even their play styles, from what I've seen, are not, it's not like they're identical. Like they just made like a magic clone. They really just gave a girl a sword, like a big sword, right? Like, and the thing is, too, is that, you know, there is the difference of the fact that Marvel already exists. So they're pulling characters from worlds that already exist. And sometimes, because it is a multiverse situation, they get to kind of take their own, you know, artistic liberties with how they want to present the character. Kind of like when Daredevil came out, and it's like, yeah, there was this one comic where he kind of had similar powers and stuff. But for the most part, he is massively different from the Daredevil that most of us kind of know on a day-to-day basis. And that's the thing, is like, that's comics. That there's always a comic where you can find some random character that becomes a cosmic god or something for 10 minutes, or you know, gets the Phoenix Force or whatever randomly, and then, you know, goes away. So there's a lot of people that go back and forth about that. But with Overwatch, they do kind of have, I feel like, more of an advantage in the sense that they can create their own original characters. They're not bound by what characters already exist. And it kind of works both ways, because with Marvel, people are going to be like, oh, they're releasing this character that I know and love and have grown up with, so I'm going to want to play it because of that. But then, like I said, with Overwatch, they kind of don't have any restraints to stuff, because they can just make a character, and that character can just do whatever it is they want, or have whatever backstory they want, etc. And one thing that I want to add into, why doesn't Overwatch have like a TV show? Because they have some of the best stories and like cinematics and stuff ever. And I'm just really confused as to why we don't have like a Netflix Overwatch show just made by the same people, or damn near the same people, that do the cinematics and stuff like that. Their story is amazing. And you look at games like Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk had one of the worst launches on release. It's become like kind of like a meme in regards to how to not release a game. One of the only games that I've ever seen when it released, PlayStation actually told people, listen, we don't care how long you've owned the game or whatever the case is, we'll refund your money. And then they actually took it off the PlayStation Store. And they've kind of had like a second and third life where they went back and actually taken the time to fix the game. But a big aspect of why so many people want to play Cyberpunk now and like it is because of the Netflix anime show that they made, which wasn't even like directly tied to the story of the game or anything. They created their own original story in the same like universe. And that became so popular that it made people want to play the game. And I'm pretty sure the same thing happened with the, the League of Legends show. I watched it, but I can't remember the name off the top of my head right now. But nonetheless, though, that show was so good, I actually thought about playing League of Legends. And League of Legends is not even my type of game. Now, I didn't, but at the same time, though, it made me think about it. And I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people that started playing the game just because of the show, because they enjoyed it so much and wanted to know what the characters were like in the game, and et cetera, right? So I'm just trying to figure out why they haven't made their own show yet. Like, I would love, even though I don't like to play Overwatch, I would love an Overwatch show. So I don't know what they're waiting on with that, but yeah, if anybody is listening from Blizzard, y'all might want to just talk to some people at Netflix. Netflix will make a show about anything. So I don't know what y'all are waiting on with that, right? Like, I'm sure it would only make you money. I don't know what the problem is with that. Nonetheless, though, let me know in the comments what you guys think about Vendetta and the whole situation with that. If you play Overwatch, if you play both games, if you dislike one or dislike the other one, whatever the case is, I love to hear from you guys. A lot of times you all have far more insight into these things than I do. I just like to kind of talk about them from my own point of view. But like I said, a lot of times in the comments, you guys fill me in on so much different stuff that I didn't know about. So I really love to hear your thoughts and opinions on it. This is not an echo chamber. But that's all I got for this video. I am going to wrap it up. And once again, I just want to say I do appreciate you all for listening, and I hope that you all have a great Thanksgiving break and the rest of your week. But I will catch you guys on the next one. Father Dark, and I'm out.